well, our Meet the Masters special. Today, if you're familiar with the previous format, today is slightly different. We got with us a few social media, you could say, power users, and they have different skills and different things to bring onto the conversation. And I think I'll just start by letting you all introduce yourselves, and let's try this in an alphabetic order, which would be Alex, Bianca, Viola, and so on.
So my name's Alex Bond. I'm a senior conservation scientist at the RSPB here in the UK, and I tweet at the Lab and Field.
Hi, I'm Bianca. I'm a PhD student in the University of Glasgow, and I'm the owner of the page Aves Marinhas e Costeiras, the Portuguese page that got larger viewers.
And Grant, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I had muted my thing. So, hey everyone, I'm Grant Humphries. I tweet at Grant Humphries, and I'm currently the coordinator for seabirds.net, and the social media person for the World Seabird Union, one of them anyways. And I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the University of California, Davis currently.
Me next or you?
You next.
Okay. I'm Viola. I work at the British Trust for Ornithology. Up until last week, I was an ecologist in the wetland and marine team working on seabirds. Now I'm moving full-time into science communications, but still at the British Trust for Ornithology, and seabirds are still my passion.
My name is Amanda Gladix, and I'm a faculty research assistant at Oregon State University. I joined Twitter about 6 months ago, so I'm not so much a power user, but I'm very interested in science communication and have been involved with the Meet the Masters series in advance of the World Seabird Conference. And I tweet at @Gladix.
we can see that. And sorry, I should have introduced myself. I'm Shurer, or Shu, at University of Glasgow, and I'm also a host of these hangouts. And I think we should just crack on with a really negative question. Social media, is it really worth the effort for academics to get into social media? And could I ask Alex to take that one first?
I think the answer is obviously yes. So it's I came on social media, and specifically Twitter, when I was a postdoc, and I was in the lab with no one else. So those neat papers that you come across, or discussions that you want to have, that you could usually have with colleagues, I didn't have anyone in our building that was into seabirds or birds generally. So I went to Twitter and found a fantastic community to talk about papers, research, field work, share photos. So for me, that was almost my lab group. So yeah, I would say it's definitely worth it.
Can I add to that? Yeah, so I manage the social media account for the British Trust for Ornithology, and I keep track of lots of scientific researchers and journals through Twitter, and it's a really great way to keep your finger on the pulse of research and find out what's going on. And also, when you're tweeting journal articles, it can push up altmetric scores, and from that point of view, it's relevant to researchers as well.
Yes, I think there's no doubt about yes, it is really important, and the resistance comes mostly from older researchers, because society in their time didn't consider internet and social media as day-by-day habit, and the new generations, and this includes us, the social media and the internet, it's really essential. It's a second level of integration in life. So science is for society, and society is using internet, so we have to get used to that and really get into it, I think.
Yeah, I can only echo what everybody else has said. Say for maybe the big advantage that I've found is that it builds a collaborative community. You know, something that I think right now is very important is this international collaboration. It's very hard to do that without social media. You know, email listservs and traditional communication can only go so far. But these sort of social media events and Twitter, Facebook, and stuff like that can bring together people who are working in very different countries much faster than what we could before. And I think that that's majorly important right now with the state of seabirds and other marine mammals and things like that we need to be focusing on.
Yeah, so it seems quite clear that there may be two sort of reasons for being on social media. One is outreach, and there's the ethical imperative of you know, reaching people where most people are reachable. And I know Viola and Grant, you've and Bianca for that matter, you're administrating groups that have relatively large followings. Do you have any sort of either anecdotes or examples of sort of or do you have any good examples of how many people this you can reach effectively with social media? What are the numbers where you know when we're talking about a typical seabird issue or a conservation issue?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's how can I take that? The seabird community itself is quite small. You know, when we look at the numbers of people who show up to World Seabird conferences, the World Seabird Conference, who engage in other conferences around the world, and then engage in social media and stuff like that, we might be looking at a community of maybe 2,500 to maybe 3,000 people at like an absolute high, you know, and that's including students, professors, stuff like that who study seabirds around the world. And you look at the numbers of people who follow us on Twitter and things like that now, they're not necessarily all researchers. Some of them may be people who are just interested in seabirds. But we've still got, you know, 2,000 or nearly 2,000 people following on Facebook, or on, I think it's Facebook and Twitter. And what that essentially means is that we're reaching potentially something like 40 to 50% of the seabird community around the world. And that, you know, that sort of, the sort of system we have set up allows us to reach them quickly. So I guess the closest thing I have to an anecdote would be when I was at PhD this year, Norm, what was his name? Norman at British Antarctic Survey. Norman, someone fill in the blank there, I think.
Ratcliffe.
There, thank you. Norman Radcliffe came up to me, and he was talking to me a little bit about seabirds.net and some of the jobs that they've advertised on seabirds.net. Now, seabirds.net is a web page, but what we do is everything that comes up on seabirds.net we share through social media and, you know, Twitter. He came up to me and told me that of all the job applications that they've ever had, for the ones that they've advertised through seabirds.net, all of the redirects and all the people who've applied, or most of them anyways, have all said that they got the information from Facebook or seabirds.net, and essentially that's been their best way of getting information out to the right candidates.
That's a great anecdote, actually. Does anybody else have anything?
I can do some screen sharing if you like.
Yes, please do.
Okay, let's see whether this works. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so these are tweets through the Seeburger group, and they're tweets I've sent over the last 6-7 months or so. And in terms of outreach, you can see that the tweet that's had the biggest number of impressions here has got, what, 164,000, 165,000 impressions, and it's been picked up by PLOS ONE and various other people. So we're talking about the size of the Seeburger community. That's showing that we can get messages out to a much, much broader community than that, which I guess can only help with seabird conservation and awareness of the important issues.
I think also depends on your aim. I mean, which kind of people are you trying to reach? Because yeah, we work with seabirds and they're amazing. Everybody know that. But the point is your tool in the social media focus on only researchers or only ordinary people or both? So this is going to influence the amount of people that are getting to the information and how you're going to expose that. Because to researchers, we can talk about lots of technical stuff and cite papers, and there's no problem. Everybody loves it. But ordinary people doesn't even understand what we're going to do. So they prefer when you do something more like images and curiosities, and ally that with the research and this stuff, and align this both publics and integrating different tools, as was in the case of the Twitter conference. There were a lot of influence from Facebook too, when some of the sharings were made by other social tools. So it's kind of a challenge to integrate everything, every kind of public, every kind of tool, and try to reach the most we can, because we're not only thinking about the research itself. For that, we have the papers, we have the conference, and we know who we're dealing with. But the research can, again, it's part of society, when what we are trying to do is to show our work and show everything we are finding, good or bad results, to other people, and trying to get in conservation plans, actions, politics, and all the stuff. So I think it's a very complex thing to measure, and how we're reaching them, and what's exactly the percentage of people we're really getting into our materials and stuff.
Yeah, I guess the what we can appreciate is that there's a different cascade of interest groups. I suppose we do share material, or we share things that are interesting to other researchers, but we also want to get attention around conservation issues, for that matter. So that's to some degree one of the main reasons for why I think it's worthwhile being on social media. But there's also this other aspect of trying to connect researchers in a sort of meaningful way. I've very often my sort of feeling with Twitter and very often, I suppose, Seeburger Saturday as well, is that it's a very casual social context, much like a talk. No, sorry, a break time, like a coffee break in between lectures or something like that, where you can interact with people. And it's, but I sometimes I get sort of hit by this question: when it comes to it, what are the real life collaborations that have come out of interacting on social media? And for that important point, Alex Bond has a has a neat story, I think.
Yeah. So last November, there are social media accounts that are curated by different people on a regular basis. So there's one called Real Scientists. There's another called BioTweets, which a new person every week who tweets about biology, and it could be anything from medical to conservation to you name it. And back in November, a guy was doing it named Steve Portugal, who's based at a university in London, and he just happened to be tweeting something that I thought could be really, really neat and applicable. And so I got in touch with him in the new year, and it started an absolutely fantastic collaboration. So we've already started sort of 2 large-ish projects together because I saw him tweet about some of his work on sensory mechanisms in ibises. I thought, there's a really neat application to this in something that I'm doing. And now we're sort of firmly down the road of collaborative research. And it wouldn't have happened if I'd not been following BioTweets that particular week. I didn't know Steve before, and I hadn't encountered him on social media before. So it was by him curating this account for his 1 week in November that we were able to connect. And now we've got some really neat projects on the go.
It's quite funny and impressive to think about how many people throughout this past year I've met online and not actually met in real life. I don't think, with the exception of Bianca, I don't think I've met any of you in real life. And Amanda, I'm sure you can say this as well as a host of these Meet the Masters. It's really been a good opportunity to meet people from all around the world. Sorry to put you on the spot, but do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's just been incredible to have a much more broad geographic range to my network of people working in conservation research and seabirds specifically. I mean, I think we the more influences you can get, especially as an early career researcher, to just think about what are the possibilities, what are people working on in different parts of the world. I think my network previously was pretty Pacific focused. I mean, I'm active in the Pacific Seabird group, and that's been a great resource of expertise to draw on. But to be able to have connections in the UK and Australia and New Zealand has been really, really cool. And it hasn't led to any active collaborations yet, but I feel like that is just a matter of time. As we know each other, and I mean, connections are being made all the time of ideas of things to do. So, yeah, it's been really, really cool, and I would not have. I mean, there's lots of people I never would have met in any other way.
Mm-hmm. So before we get sort of ahead of ourselves, we talk about social media in a relatively abstract sense, but there are obviously different social media platforms. My impression is that many people tend to like Twitter. Some like Facebook, but some have the impression that Facebook is for personal use and Twitter is for professional use. Do you have any comments on this? And I'd like to direct that to Bianca to begin with.
So yeah, I think depends really on culture of each country and each group. Here in the UK and most of English countries, the English speaking, they use Twitter for professional stuff, and some of them use Facebook for a more personal life. But it's not how it works everywhere. So in South America, most of researchers they use only Facebook, and they mix a personal life and professional life, but in different levels of confidentiality and in the platform. And we cannot forget that in China, Facebook doesn't work at all, and there they use WeChat. It's a totally different way of social media, and this is the same also for Africa, Russia, and everywhere. So it kind of depends on what kind of people you want to reach, if it's a national or international group. And I think the best way to deal with that, it's having profiles in different platforms and using that according to your aims to each public. So it's kind of it's a work of public relation, and it's not something we are using in research to deal with that, but we have to more and more. And yeah, I think basically something in this way.
Grant, do you maybe, since you're running a Facebook and Twitter account, do you notice any important differences between those?
Yeah, certainly. It depends on what you're trying to get out. That's what I've been finding, right? I mean, Twitter is good. You can get links up and things like that, but you can't be as descriptive in a 144-character tweet as you can in a Facebook post. So sometimes Facebook ends up being a better outlet for certain things. Whenever a Seeburgers.net post comes up that might be of interest to a wider group, it's better to sometimes it's better to spell that out and then post it to the Facebook page. The thing is about like Twitter and Facebook. And in fact, I joined Twitter maybe 2 years ago, and I had no interest in joining Twitter at all, because Twitter I always saw as this thing for youngsters. It was these millennials who sit in their phone all day long and tweet about what kind of food they're eating or what cafe they're at. Of course, that's obviously changed now in how we view it. And I think, for now, Twitter and Facebook seem to be the best outlets. With Twitter, probably, I do agree that Twitter tends to be more for professional use. People post, little news articles or, little clippets about things they're doing. Certainly, Seeburger Saturday, right? Pictures of seabirds and stuff like that. While Facebook tends to be more personal, however, when you have like professional or like group websites like World Seabird Union Facebook page, or there's a couple other ones, like there's the Early Career Scientists, Seabird Scientists Facebook page and things like that, where we can communicate on a professional level without making it personal. So it just depends on what aspect of Facebook you're using. If you're using your personal Facebook page, yeah, everything will be more personal there, and it'll be pictures of your latest trip and all this sort of stuff. Whereas Twitter and the sort of group or organizational Facebook pages can be used just as well, and I think both of them can be used quite effectively. More people are on Facebook, and more of the senior people are on Facebook than on Twitter. And in fact, even like Dave Irons, for example, who's chair of the World Seabird Union, he's got a Facebook page, but he doesn't have Twitter, and I doubt we'll ever see him on Twitter, even though he keeps saying he's going to. But he does have a Facebook page. So I mean, it's one of these things, where some of the older generation are more amenable to Facebook for some reason or another, and I don't know. I don't quite know what the reason is for that. But to reach them, Facebook would be the best way. Whereas for us and our generation of people, Twitter seems to work quite well.
And I can add a huge difference in Facebook and Twitter is the timing in which the post you're doing appears to people. So Twitter is much faster, and you see everything in a second. This is good in the sense that you want to be updated, but it's bad for the long term that you want your news to be on. So in this sense, it's a bit good that Facebook takes longer to erase that post from the timeline with the news. And also, it's easier to control who are going to really follow strictly every news or not. Which in Twitter you basically don't do that. You just keep following everyone, and it's that rush in the timeline.
Could I comment on this? Yeah, so yeah, I run Facebook and Twitter for both the BTO and for the Seeburger group. I think, yeah, Twitter is much more immediate and a better way of sharing information than Facebook, I would say. But again, as Bianca said, it depends where you are. I was chatting to the guy who runs the BirdLife social media channels. We find through the BTO we're much more effective on Twitter than on Facebook. We've got a far, far bigger following. They've got almost the opposite, and it's because they're engaging with a lot of people in Africa and in Asia and countries where, as we've already mentioned, Twitter isn't so big and Facebook's better. In terms of information getting lost in the Twitter feeds, obviously you can tweet things several times over. You can schedule tweets for optimal times for people to notice them. I have a lot of different Twitter feeds where I keep track of, you know, people who I really want to watch, like you guys. So yeah, there are ways around it, and also you can boost, you know, posts on Facebook and that sort of thing. So yeah, you can get around it.
So, and I can sort of appreciate, especially if you're a relatively senior scientist, you can't be asked, you know, signing up to more than one social media, and if that happens to be Facebook, and I can understand why Facebook would be more intuitive than Twitter. Does that mean that if for the future, if we're wanting to be you know, engaging a wide audience, for example, the World Seabird Union or BTO or BirdLife, will you always have to run different parallel profiles, and will they evolve in different directions potentially? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that social media is one of these things that's constantly changing. And, you know, it could be that in 2 years there's going to be something completely different, a whole other platform. I mean, even since Twitter and Facebook became big, you know, there's all these other ones like Periscope and Pinterest and Instagram and all these other things that keep popping up, you know, sort of overnight. And there's no way of telling. There's just no way of telling of how things change, because technology changes so bloody fast that you can hardly keep on top of it as it is. So the only way to survive, and the only way to communicate, is to maintain multiple channels, because everyone, I mean, and even if you go to other countries, like look at Russia and China, for example. China doesn't even have Facebook. If we wanted to reach them, we'd have to start considering ways of getting into their social media platforms, which is very difficult from, you know, certainly from North America. You just can't do it. But you know, the point is that in the end, we need to be able to be very flexible with the platforms we're using, and if we have to use multiple platforms, then, you know, I think that's the best way of going about it, and making sure that the people who are in charge of that are on top of the changes in technology and communication.
Yeah, I think also within the platforms themselves, they change very quickly. And I remember a couple of years ago, suddenly everyone was tweeting images, and that went crazy. And now everyone's tweeting, you know, short clips. And yeah, you've just got to stay ahead of the curve, and that can be quite difficult to do sometimes.
I think we've got a couple questions or comments from our online audience, and I think it sort of fits in with the discussion right now of thinking about multiple channels and multiple platforms. Jamie McMillan, that tweets at @orchid_b, suggests like live ringing of seabirds to get new audiences interested in seabird science, and then also perhaps like a live chumming event to bring in, you know, an at-sea pelagic trip, live broadcasts. And I'm wondering if you guys could comment on sort of these kinds of like more just creating curiosity and engagement of people who might not know about seabird science or care so much yet? And what platforms could we do those with?
So I'll just make a quick little statement here. They're really nifty ideas, but I think that there are potential issues with certainly with organizations that are doing that. You know, I mean, there's always issues with bird handling, and you potentially make one little tiny mistake, and then if it's live, I mean, that could create a backlash that would be hard to recover from. The live chumming event seems a little bit more reasonable to me. I think that would be kind of cute, but I wouldn't know what the implications would be for you know, because chumming. I mean, certainly there's large groups of people who believe that chumming shouldn't, you know, is a bit of a no-no as it is. So I'm just wondering, you know, like what would be the sort of fallback from doing things like that? As cool as an idea as it might be, I'm not sure it's totally feasible in a way that would avoid that kind of firestorm afterwards.
Yeah, I agree with Grant. We'd have to be really, really careful about live streaming of ringing, for example. It is a licensed activity. You need to know how to handle the birds. You wouldn't want just random people going to a seabird colony and pulling shearwaters out of burrows or or that sort of thing. So we would have to be careful. Although saying that, it's also good to raise awareness of these activities and how people can be involved and not just keep it exclusive to scientists, for example. In terms, again, of things like ringing and how people could take it the wrong way, managing the BTO Twitter feed, sometimes we do get some people saying they've seen birds in a net and it's really cruel, and before you know it, it's spiraled, and yeah, it can be a bit difficult. You just need to think of the right way to manage it.
So, yeah, again, you have to think of the public, because you don't control which kind of people are seeing what you're posting if it's a public post. And science has methods, and these methods has implications. So as researchers, we discuss lots about the limitations and dangers and to the animal and to the researcher. So sharing this openly, it totally has some precautions to take, because everything we put on the internet, people just see and think, wow, that's incredible. I can do that, because if I saw on the internet, then I can do that. And it totally is not that way. We are like 3, 4, 5 years in the graduation, plus 3, 4, 5 years in the post-graduation to do that. So it's a bit of not only the image that's coming, but the experience of the person that is doing that. So if we could show these limitations before extremism, it would be nice. But if not, I'm totally against of showing openly in such an open way.
I think we've got an ethical obligation in terms of what we post. I mean, we're all professionals, and we want to present a professional appearance, and whether that's crediting images that we use in social media, not stealing images or artwork, or linking to linking to papers, or presenting live stream activities. I think those all have ethical issues around them that we have to consider. I mean, we know what we're doing, as Bianca said, because we're all professionals. We're licensed ringers or banders or trainees, and yeah, I think we have to remember that the internet isn't just the seabird community. It's your next door neighbor, the guy down the street. Once it's out there, it's out there. And while for a lot of stuff, for outreach, that's absolutely brilliant, because it brings the work that we do to a broader community. But like everything, that has certain risks. There are people out there who are very against bird banding and will write letters to the editor of major newspapers and say, this is terrible, how could you ever do such a thing? We all know that it's scientifically valid, rigorous, and ethical, both in terms of the research and the animal welfare. But if we put that out there, especially those of us who work for organizations, we also have to uphold the reputation of those organizations, whether it's a university or an NGO or a government. We're presenting a public face for those organizations. We've got to keep that in mind as well.
Well, I'm going to disagree with all the naysayers here. I think Periscope is a great idea, but maybe I'm thinking more as an academic. I don't. Yeah, I totally agree that there are aspects of field work that are not so great for broadcasting live. But Periscope is an app that I've seen mentioned on Twitter in this context, and I was thinking as an academic, what kind of exposure it gives to the individual if you imagine using Periscope to live broadcast conference events or workshops or those kinds of things, not necessarily field work. I think that's a new avenue that every person with a smartphone sort of can get into if they like. But I agree. For the rest,
I think that maybe it just depends on the context of what you're doing. For example, it might be kind of interesting to like have a live stream of the cabin on one of the islands or something like that. Just a 3-hour stream of what life is like at a seabird research camp or something like that. And certainly, I mean, we see like puffin cams and all this sort of stuff all over the place. So I think things like that are relatively benign, where you're not handling the birds, and you're not actively doing anything like that actually might be kind of cool, and people might get a kick out of it, and certainly learn a lot about seabird research. You could even have these sort of seabird these sort of things where you set up a live stream from some remote cabin, maybe in Svalbard or something like that, and then one of the researchers every so often comes along and sits down in front of you and talks to the camera. I mean,
yeah. We lose anyone from the line? Because I can see, maybe it's just my connection. Sorry. If nobody had anything to add to that last point about live broadcasting, I'd like to continue. Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah?
Can I just add one thing? I agree with Grant. I think there's a lot of potential for using live streams, but it needs to be with activities that are either the personal stories of the researchers, so you can communicate, your story and why you're curious and excited about your research, or field work that is more observational, not as hands-on. I just think there's too many complications with misunderstandings that are possible.
And yeah, just a lesson side. This, in a careful sense, it's bringing the citizen science to the digital platform. So we already have lots and lots of research and conservation programs that consider ordinary people, citizens, to get data, to go with you, to see the methods, how they work, and work in this sense. So I should say, and Grant and Amanda, would be really nice to bring broadcasting in this sense of citizen science too, with all the current needs.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, Alex mentioned we're all professionals, and that's true. But a lot of the work that the data we analyse has been collected by licensed citizen scientists like ringers or people doing bird surveys. So I think, yeah, we do therefore have an obligation to try and present that widely to amateurs, non-professionals,
Well, yeah, very good points. On to our next question. How do you navigate the difference between personal and professional? Do would you recommend people having different profiles? I mean, obviously, some of you have Twitter profiles that are, you know, part of groups, but I mean, you're the ones based on your person. Alex?
So I think I think we can or at least I sort of divide the folks that I follow on Twitter into sort of two broad categories. There are folks that are either organizations or people who post nothing but science or papers or new journal articles or things like that. But then there are also people who do that sort of thing, but you also see part of the person, and those are the people that I like following a heck of a lot more, because just like standing around the water cooler or eating lunch together at a table, you get to know them over time. So it's like, you know, for you or Viola, I've never met you in person, but I know a little bit about you. I know about all those gulls. Who doesn't love gulls? Shoes from the Faroes. And that, I think, makes a stronger connection, so that if I see something from either of you that's, you know, an important conservation story, in my mind that carries more weight, because you've sort of said, here's this really neat thing. And I tend to engage more with those accounts than accounts that simply post, you know, links to papers, although those also do have, in my mind, a use on Twitter. So I'm sort of in the camp of mixing things up, a little bit of both.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
You go on.
I was just going to say that I think that most of us are at a stage in our careers where we're able to do that quite easily. You know, I mean, for example, I'm not going to go on Twitter and, you know, post pictures of me drunk in the street, like I may have done when I was in my undergrad or something like that, right? So most of us now just have sort of the innate ability to be able to separate the two quite easily. But I think at earlier stages in my career or in other people's careers, we have issues because there isn't really good training. There aren't really any guidelines that are in place on how to do that. And it might be interesting, actually, to put those sort of guidelines down somewhere. And I know that in some places they exist, but for our community, for the scientific community, there's not really anything formally put down.
Can I say something? Yeah, so I'm mostly tweeting as BTO and as the Seeburger group, and they're both impartial, non-campaigning. I have my own views, which are more conservation orientated. So when I'm tweeting through me, I've just got the views of my own thing. In terms of managing the organization's social media, we have been developing some guidelines about things like this, about expressing views and trying to protect the BTO's impartiality and the Seeburger group's impartiality, for that matter. But yeah, it can be tricky. We've had a few contentious things where members of BTO staff have jumped in and maybe expressed views that are a bit more campaigny, and yeah, we've had to try and sort of gently encourage them to sort of toe the line a bit more, but without being too proscriptive and dictatorial. So yeah, and also finally tweeting from me. I don't do it that much often, and it's funny, when I did bio tweets, I found it quite, I felt quite exposed. It was weird. I'm kind of used to almost hiding behind the BTO impartiality and veneer. So I think, yeah, putting my own views out there was a bit different.
You mentioned bio tweets. Could you just very briefly tell us what bio tweets is about?
Yeah, so it's an account where a different biologist takes the reins every week and tweets about their work and their views and whatever they want to, really, how they got into it. Some people, when they're in charge, do a lot more than others. I did quite a lot of tweeting when I was doing it. I took it quite seriously. And yeah, I was quite nervous but it went really well. But yeah, as I said, I did feel kind of exposed suddenly, putting my views across when I'm so used to hiding behind the impartial BTO Seeburger group, mask.
Yeah. So those are really worthwhile following via tweets. And Alex, you mentioned another one. What was that?
That was Real Scientists.
Yeah, Real Scientists. Yeah. So now the whole Twitter sphere has gone looking for pictures of Grant in his undergrad days while being drunk. How do you respond to that, Grant? Or do you have anything to say?
He can search all he wants. He's going to have a hard time finding them. I've done a good job of hiding them.
I think I just want to add to this discussion of like personal versus professional, and I think being relatively new to Twitter and having been sort of a reluctant adopter, I think it's an interesting balance trying to find your voice where you are saying things that are interesting and show a little bit of your personality, but don't put you too far out there and expose you. And I haven't had any like horrible things blow up in my face yet, but I think it's a little bit inevitable. I mean, you're always going to be kind of riding this balance, especially as a woman in science. I think there's a lot of trolling out there.
Yeah, I've had some minor trolling. It's not been too bad, but a few times when I've done, one time I did a news interview about gulls, and then I had a couple of rude men replying, saying stuff that I can't repeat here. And also, quite recently, I guess a few of you probably heard about the Tim Hunt controversy. And I was one of the people who tweeted a distractingly sexy photo of me covered in seabird poo, and I did get some replies that were, a bit inappropriate to that, which was unfortunate. But apart from that, it's not been too bad. But as Amanda says, it can be a bit dangerous out there.
So I'll defend Facebook on this way, because Facebook has different levels, so you can select what kind of post is for your family or what kind of post is for everybody, or not so well-known people.
So one thing is you can make your account on Twitter private, which means that only people that you let follow you can follow you. So that's, it's not a very good. Well, it's one way. And the other is, the thing to remember is that Twitter and these other social media platforms are there, in my mind, they're there primarily for you to enjoy and be part of a community. So, make liberal use of the, block button and unfollow button if there are people there that are not, enriching your experience at all. So, use it to, as much as you can for the betterment of your experience, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, thanks for that. Quickly on to our one of our last questions. It's to do with the Twitter conference. It's really not a question, I guess. Grant, could you tell us a bit about the Twitter conference and maybe how you see, how does that reflect the future of academia on social media?
Sure. The Twitter conference. I was nervous at first when I started putting this idea together that we weren't going to get a big audience from the Seabird community, because I didn't know how many people at the time were actually actively involved in Twitter. But as it started coming together and people started getting involved, it was pretty unbelievable. Actually, had the reach and the numbers of people that actually followed. And in the end, we managed to cover, pretty well the entire planet. We had all 7 continents that were covered. We even had people who had tweeted from the Antarctic. So it ended up being very, very successful in the end, a lot more than I could have imagined. And I think that that's going to only improve over time as more, because as younger people are joining the Seeburg community, a lot of them are already involved in Twitter. A lot of them will be, now that we've already had our first event, people are aware of it. And certainly at the World Seeburg Conference, it'll be a point of discussion, for the larger groups. So there'll be opportunity to improve on that and expand our reach. So I think, and in fact, I think that the Twitter conference, is going to be a very good way to tie things over between World Seeburg conferences, because they're 5 years apart as it stands right now, which is a really long time to go between these sorts of conferences. So if we can have these sorts of events, even if there's only 2 of them between conferences, that really keeps people abreast of what everybody is doing around the world in a cheap and easy way. I mean, the Twitter conference essentially cost us nothing, just manpower, and even that wasn't substantial. And Shu, you were involved with that, so you know how much time we actually put into it. Even though there was some logistical things to sort out, in the grand scheme of things, compared to organizing a traditional conference, it was so much easier. And we had a massive reach. I mean, we had 300 and some odd people actively participating over the conference, tweeting, and that was more than what you get at sort of a Pacific Seeburg group meeting or a Seeburg group meeting. So, anyways, there's a trend map there.
Yeah, can I just jump in here and mention that I'm sharing the trend map of where the tweets came from, so you can really see the geographic reach of the Twitter conference. It was really impressive, so great job on organizing that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's amazing to watch the UK just sort of explode. See where the real Twitter users are.
Yeah, and speaking of another sort of online event, for a few people may have not heard about Seeburger Saturday, we started having themed Seeburger Saturdays. And the next one coming up is actually chaired by our own Alex Bond, and it will be on stable isotopes. And we're still very far from calling them, they're not tutorials or workshops, but we could imagine it going in that direction. Or what do you think, Alex? What are your expectations of this?
Yeah, so I think, Shu and I had a chat about this a while ago, thinking of all of the expertise that we've got on Twitter. So for me, it was someone mentioned something about measuring eggshell color, and I thought, oh, that'd be really neat. I wish I knew how to do that and do it properly in the field. That would be fantastic. I wonder. I'm surely they could, 2 hours, sit around on Twitter and tell us how it works. And I'm sure I know something that someone else probably wants to know. So I've been doing some stable isotope work for the last 10 years or so. So I thought, oh, that's a pretty would be a pretty neat thing to chat about. Quite popular in seabird ecology. So this Saturday from 4 till 6, I think, or 2 to 4, I can't remember. Watch seabirds.net for the announcement that should hopefully be up tomorrow. And follow #Seeburger Saturday on Twitter.
Thanks for that. So we're running out of time. So before we close up and have some announcements, I would like to give you each a chance to, and this might be quite tricky. I'd like you to try and come up with a really good trick of using social media, and I'll start. My favorite sort of a hack of Twitter, not really a hack, but I love the use of lists. If you've not heard about these, Twitter allows you to create lists of people, so you don't actually have to follow a bunch of people. Did I steal your? Sorry. Yeah. And they allow you to follow lots of people without actually following them. so you can group people, and it's sort of what Alex was already touched on with having different kinds of people that you follow. I guess you can sort people into different lists, and I have some for seabirds, and I have other people for other stuff. Does anybody else want to mention a really great idea that you have for Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever? Alex, first.
So you unfairly stole the one that I was going to suggest, but the one that I'll pull out of the bag is creating a unique hashtag. So my fieldwork is on Tristan da Cunha, and oh, sorry, I might have stolen yours. So my fieldwork is on Tristan da Cunha, and so I tweet anything about fieldwork on the island. I tweet with the hashtag TDC Adventure, so that can be photos or bits and pieces from the field when we have an internet connection, or getting ready for the field. I got my new rucksack and trousers the other day, so that was hashtag TDC Adventure. And it's also a neat way for you to look at sort of your sort of one group of tweets together. If you can just scroll through them all, you see you've got a nice little story.
Yeah, both of those are really good. One thing I do as well to try and increase the audience I'm engaging with is, atting people in the tweets who I think will be interested. So during Spring Watch, for example, which I guess you guys who aren't in the UK might not know about, I engage quite a lot with the BBC through social media, and that way really increases the power of the tweets. They reach a much bigger audience, provided they retweet them, which they usually do, particularly if I DM them as well and say please.
So yeah, I think I have two tips in the sense. One, work with image. So people are a lot visual. So when you work with pictures, infographics or videos, that will reach much more than you think. Well, only with tests. And also other language too. I mean, we focus research, we focus everything such on English, but there are lots of people from other countries that they would love to have to get in touch with this material, but they can't because the language is a barrier in many places. So maybe think about tweeting things or posting things on Facebook or whatever in more than one language. Maybe consider other languages that reach more people in the area you work, or and depending on the country or the region.
That's cool. I guess I've got two little ones as well. One that's actually I think I got from you was to put a whenever you're trying to reach a group and you put like at whomever, if you put a period in front of the at symbol, you can reach their entire following. So if you're trying to get a message out to a large audience, if you do that, you can reach the following of that entire person. Oh, shit. Sorry, Amanda. We're stealing each other's ideas all over the place. The other one that I had too was to link your Facebook and Twitter accounts. So you can link the two now very easily, and so for those of you who may follow me on my personal account on Facebook, you might see that my tweets come up on Facebook all the time. So if you link your Twitter and Facebook accounts, you can get the two. You essentially get a 2-for-1. So you can get all your tweets up on Facebook, so you get information out on both avenues pretty easily.
Sorry. Yeah. That tip that I got it from James Grecian, and it was only like a couple of weeks ago, or it seems. I never realized that if you put a dot or a symbol, in front of a person or a tweet handle, that will reach his whole following crowd. Amanda, I think we need to round up. what kind of practical things do we need to advertise?
Well, it would probably be good to mention we have the next Meet the Masters session coming up during the second week of August. We have not set a specific time for that yet, so watch out for announcements regarding that. But we'll have Thierry Boulinière and Bill Seidemann, speaking about ecosystem synthesis in a changing climate. It should be a really good one. I'm excited about it.
Thanks. And I guess that's pretty much everything. Thanks everyone for participating. It's been a pleasure. And I hope to see you around for, if not in real life, then on Seeburger Saturday or wherever you might be.
Cape Town.
Cape Town.
Thanks for organising and inviting us.
And that's pretty much it. If everything is set, I will just stop this broadcast.
Alrighty.
All right.
Thank you, Shu. Thanks for organizing.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, world.
Thank you.